Coronation Street fans absolutely reeling. What looked like a devastating medical emergency has now been revealed as something far more disturbing, tied to a bedroom moment between two young lovers that spiraled into a life-changing catastrophe. Tonight, we're breaking down everything you need to know about Betsy Swain's stroke storyline on Coronation Street, why it's being called one of the most important the soap has ever tackled, and why star Sydney Martin says the reality of it has been extremely upsetting to portray. If you've been anywhere near social media this summer, you'll know Coronation Street has been building towards something huge with the Swain family, and it has finally landed. Betsy Swain, the teenage daughter of DS Lisa Swain, has become the center of a storyline that's got the whole country talking, trending on soap forums, and prompting serious conversations about a subject British television has barely touched before. It's a story about consent, about a dangerous sexual practice that's become disturbingly common among young people, and about the devastating, life-altering consequences that can follow. Coronation Street has never been afraid of tackling difficult subjects, but this one has hit differently, and it's easy to see why. For anyone who hasn't been following Weatherfield closely, let's rewind and set the scene. Betsy Swain, played by Sydney Martin, arrived on the cobbles back in the summer of 2024 and quickly established herself as one of the show's most complicated young characters. She was first introduced as a friend of Sabrina Adetiba before it emerged she was the daughter of DS Lisa Swain, played by Vicky Myers. Since then, Betsy has barely had a moment's peace. She's been caught up in blackmail plots against Carla Connor. She was targeted and threatened by the drug-dealing villain Joel Deering, and her entire world was turned upside down when her mother Becky, long believed dead, sensationally reappeared in Weatherfield very much alive. On top of all of that, Betsy survived the horrifying Corrie crash earlier this year, an incident that could easily have taken her life. In short, this is a young woman who has already lived through more trauma than most Corrie characters see in a decade, and yet nothing quite prepared viewers for what was coming next. That what's coming next centers on Betsy's relationship with Dylan Wilson, played by Liam McShane. Dylan himself has had his own rocky road on the show, having been dragged into knife crime and car theft storylines in recent years before settling into calmer waters. Earlier this year, cast members had teased that Dylan and Betsy's relationship would be at the heart of a major coming-of-age storyline for 2026, something McShane described as a subject Coronation Street specializes in handling sensitively. Fans expected romance, awkward teenage milestones, maybe a bit of drama. Nobody was fully prepared for just how dark and how serious that storyline would actually become. Here's the core of it. During an intimate moment between the couple, Dylan strangled Betsy during sex. According to the storyline, Betsy insists it wasn't rough and that she consented to it at the time. But the brief interruption to her breathing caused catastrophic, hidden damage. It led to a blood clot forming as a result of injury to an artery in her neck, and that clot triggered a stroke. Betsy was later found collapsed on the kitchen floor by Ryan Connor and rushed to hospital, where Lisa and Carla arrived to a nightmare scenario. Their daughter, just 18 years old, fighting for her life after a medical event usually associated with people decades older. Just when it seemed her condition was stabilizing, she suffered a second stroke, plunging the family back into crisis. It was only afterwards, in painful, halting conversations with her mother, that the truth about what had happened in that bedroom finally came out. What makes this storyline so significant is what Coronation Street has done behind the scenes to get it right. The show didn't just write this arc in isolation. Producers worked directly with expert organizations including the Institute for Addressing Strangulation, the Stroke Association, and the Sexual Violence Charity Saphaline to make sure the medical, legal, and emotional realities were portrayed as accurately as possible. That collaboration matters because this storyline isn't just about shock value. It's designed to educate. Choking or strangulation during sex, sometimes referred to online in troubling, casual terms, has become increasingly normalized among younger generations, often through exposure to pornography and social media trends. without the accompanying awareness of just how dangerous it actually is. Medical experts have long warned that even brief interruptions to blood flow or oxygen to the brain can cause damage that isn't immediately obvious, sometimes with fatal or life-altering consequences days, or even weeks later. Coronation Street's storyline is putting that danger in front of millions of viewers in the starkest possible terms, through a character audiences have grown to love. There's also a crucial legal dimension the show is exploring. Even though Betsy maintains what happened was consensual and not intended to be rough, the storyline makes clear that, in the eyes of the law, Dylan's actions still constitute a criminal offense. This mirrors real UK legislation, specifically changes introduced through the Domestic Abuse Act, which closed the so-called rough sex defense that had previously been used by defendants to argue a partner had consented to dangerous acts. By weaving this into the plot, Coronation Street is highlighting a genuinely important legal reality that many viewers, especially younger ones, may not be aware of, that consent does not remove criminal responsibility when serious harm results. Sydney Martin, the actress at the very center of the storm, has spoken candidly about the weight of carrying such a heavy storyline. She's revealed that she was first told about the plans as far back as November of last year, giving her months to prepare mentally and emotionally before filming began in May. That long lead-in time speaks to just how seriously the production has treated the subject matter. Martin has described the process as daunting and has been open with fans on social media about the emotional toll of portraying Betsy's ongoing recovery, the physical rehabilitation, the frustration, the fear, and the profound life changes a stroke survivor has to navigate, especially one so young. She's spoken about the storyline exploring what she has called an extremely upsetting reality, the reality faced by real stroke survivors and their families, many of whom battle not just physical setbacks but a long, exhausting emotional journey back towards any sense of normal life. Naturally, a storyline this raw and this real has generated an enormous reaction online. Viewers have flooded social media praising Coronation Street for tackling such an under-discussed danger, with many saying the storyline has genuinely educated them about risks they simply hadn't considered before. Stroke charities and campaigners have welcomed the visibility the soap is bringing to a condition that can affect people of any age, not just the elderly, which is a common misconception the storyline directly challenges by centering it on an 18-year-old. At the same time, the storyline hasn't escaped scrutiny. Some viewers with professional healthcare and manual handling backgrounds have raised concerns online, including a TikTok creator working as a manual handling trainer who pointed out that a scene showing Betsy being moved from her bed to a chair didn't reflect current UK guidelines for safely handling patients. It's a reminder of just how closely audiences are watching and how seriously they're taking the show's responsibility to get every detail right. Not just the big emotional beats, but the small practical ones too. Sydney Martin has responded to that specific criticism, acknowledging the feedback from fans with medical and care backgrounds while emphasizing just how much research and consultation went into the wider storyline. It's a delicate balancing act for any soap tackling sensitive real-world subject matter. Dramatic storytelling has to serve the emotional arc of the show, while also standing up to scrutiny from viewers who know the reality intimately, whether as survivors themselves, as carers, or as professionals. The willingness of both Martin and the production team to engage with that criticism, rather than dismiss it, has itself become part of the conversation, with many fans applauding the openness rather than viewing it as a misstep. So where does this leave Betsy? And where does the story go from here? At this stage, Coronation Street has made clear this isn't a storyline that wraps up quickly. Betsy's recovery is set to be a long, difficult road, mirroring the genuine, often years-long rehabilitation many real stroke survivors face. Viewers can expect to see the physical challenges continue to play out, alongside the emotional fallout of what happened between her and Dylan. There are big questions still hanging over Weatherfield. What happens to Dylan now that the truth is out and the law is potentially involved? Does he face charges, despite Betsy's insistence that nothing predatory was intended? How does Lisa, a serving police officer and Betsy's mother, reconcile her professional duty with her instinct to protect her daughter? And can Betsy's relationships with those around her, including her complicated bond with her once-thought-dead mother Becky, survive the strain of this ordeal? There's also the question of Betsy's long-term identity on the show. Soap storylines like this often become defining chapters for a character and for Sydney Martin as an actress. Given the significant, sustained collaboration with stroke and domestic abuse charities, it seems likely Coronation Street intends to use Betsy's recovery to explore recurring themes around disability, trauma recovery, and the legal protections around consent well beyond the initial dramatic reveal. Fans are already speculating about whether Dylan will face a police investigation, whether Betsy will experience lasting physical effects from the stroke, and whether this ordeal might ultimately bring her closer to her mother and Carla, or drive an irreparable wedge between the whole Swain-Connor household. To sum it all up, Coronation Street has delivered one of its most sobering and important storylines in years with Betsy Swain's stroke. What began as a medical emergency has unraveled into a story about consent, about a dangerous and increasingly normalized sexual practice, and about the brutal, life-altering aftermath a young woman now has to live through. Backed by real charities and real medical guidance, and anchored by a genuinely committed performance from Sydney Martin, this is Coronation Street using its platform to educate as much as it entertains, even as it navigates fair criticism from viewers determined to see the details handled with care. Betsy's road to recovery is only just beginning, and if the show's track record with sensitive subject matter is anything to go by, this story is going to stay front and center on the cobbles for a long time to come. That's everything we know so far about Betsy Swain's stroke storyline on Coronation Street. What do you make of how the show has handled it? Do you think Dylan should face consequences, and where do you think this story goes next for Betsy and the Swain family? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. Hit that like button if you enjoyed this video, and make sure you're subscribed for all the latest Coronation Street news, spoilers, and updates.